Hi, Mr. Turnbull. Pleasure to welcome you back to the program. Very nice to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Great to be with you.
I was listening to our Prime Minister's speech at Davos, and some of what he said reminded me of something you had written a number of months ago. And one line in particular stood out to me when he said, nostalgia, and this garnered a lot of reaction, nostalgia is not a strategy. You had written, hope is a dangerous comforter in times like these. Why is that the case, do you think?
Well, for exactly the same reason, really. I mean, can I say Mark Carney's speech was superb? It was the most important speech given since Trump became president the second time. And really, I hope everybody watches it and reads it several times. Look, the point is, what Mark is saying there is that, it's exactly the same point I was making, which is that we can't just hope that the old times will come back again, that this is just a blip. That was what people were reassuring themselves with during Trump's first term, and I guess they felt vindicated because of Biden's election. But when you look at the United States now, there have been some very big changes in their political system. The Republican Party is dominated by the MAGA movement, dominated by Trump. I don't think we can assume that this is a change, a bit of volatility. As Carney said, this is a disruption, and we've got to learn to live with that.
What are the implications of this being something more permanent than a lot of people would like to hope?
Well, I think it's exactly what Mark Carney says. The middle powers have got to work together. There's no point getting into bilateral negotiations with the United States if you can avoid it, because you're always going to be dealing with somebody so much more powerful than you. You've got to be very wary about integration and dependency. I mean, one of the big mistakes my country has made in recent years is to become even more dependent on the US from a defence point of view, right at the time when the US is becoming less dependable. And again, that's not a bug, that's a feature of the new dispensation in America. So more self-reliant, working with other middle powers, and accepting the world as it is. As Mark Carney says, nostalgia or hope, same point, is not a strategy.
Did you denote any kind of evolution in the degree to which middle powers, are willing to do so around the Greenland issue? I think there were some comments even from, for example, California Governor Gavin Newsom about how a lot of European leaders had chosen to try and diffuse situations with Trump, to try and make good to do good as far as they could. But around Greenland, everyone seemed to actually take a position in contrast to Trump, which ultimately appears, to some degree at least, to have worked. What is your assessment of how that evolved?
Well, I think that the bottom line is this. My view, and based on my experience of dealing with Trump in his first term, is that, like most bullies, possibly all bullies, if you give in to them and suck up to them, you just end up getting more bullied. Right? So I think the Europeans made a massive mistake in rolling over in such a compliant way on trade. You remember that excruciating press conference at Trump's golf resort in Scotland when Ursula von der Leyen was, trying to make it sound as though this was a good deal for Europe, where in fact it was a massive capitulation. I think the Europeans have woken up now. I think Canada's leadership has been absolutely critical, and Canadians should take a great deal of credit for this. And when standing up to Trump over Greenland has meant that he has had to back down, right? So he is, he is a classic bully. And I'm not saying this, not trying to be critical of him. This is like saying the Pope's a Catholic. He is a bully. That's his whole technique. He wrote a book about it. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to get a decent outcome with Trump, you have got to be prepared to stand your ground.
Why do you think the first instinct for so many countries was to capitulate? And were you surprised by it?
I was really surprised that they did it again. You'd think everyone would have learnt the lesson from the first term, but you get I think it's, I don't know, people naturally want to suck up and please and flatter and ingratiate. And, you can go through all the courtesies and you can, have backslapping and, talk about, all the wonderful history that your two countries have had. You can do all of that. But when it gets down to the hard yards, you know, generally behind closed doors, you've got to stand your ground. And Carney is absolutely right when he says the United States under Trump is treating integration as an opportunity for exploitation, right? So Canada, of course, is the greatest example of this. Your economy was more and more integrated with that of the United States. That was a mutual policy decisions from both sides of the border. You had a free trade agreement and so forth. Trump has used that as leverage against you. And he is boasting as an achievement of his that Canadian auto plants are closing and in effect moving across the border to the United States. So he is regarding it as an achievement that Canadian workers are getting laid off, apparently, so he claims, new opportunities for American workers. So this is a completely different world. And that's why Carney is right. I mean, he says the first thing you've got to do in confronting this is to be honest about it and stop fooling yourself. It's a very eloquent speech. I really think it's one of the most significant speeches, certainly given since Trump became leader the second time. It may prove to be one of the most important political speeches in our lifetimes. Really outstanding.
In a best case scenario, how is what the Prime Minister here said internalized by other middle powers, do you think?
Well, I think what he's been able to do, and this is a tribute to his intellect and his eloquence, he's been able to frame it in a very persuasive, considered way and deliver it in a way that I think has brought together, so if you like, crystallized, dawning reality. I mean, in a way, my experience was a bit like Carney's. My relationship with Trump in his first term began with an almighty row. I didn't seek it, but, he wanted to renege on a deal I'd done with his predecessor, and, we had a big row about it, and I held him to his word. And that was good, because then our relationship worked well, because he respected me. Now, I think Canada's position was Trump's approach to your country was so adversarial. Carney ran on a platform of standing up to Trump. He then stood up to Trump. And so that set him up well with Trump, and Trump respects him. And I think his success is seen as being taken up as an example. Now, so this is not to say that Trump can't continue to do damage to Canada or indeed other countries, but the madness of this, Bashi, is that, the countries that Trump is putting pressure on are America's closest allies. It is the members of NATO. It is Canada. I mean, it's unbelievable. And, a lot of people are struggling to come to terms with it. But I think it's important, as Carney says, to be really honest about it.
I think part of that honesty is, and you point to it, like there is real economic damage. There is real damage being done, if you take Canada as a case example, through the integration that our economy has with the United States. But we're certainly not the only ones. The realistic part of this is that if we do what the Prime Minister laid out as middle powers, there will still be a lot of pain in the interim. Do you think those middle powers have the fortitude to withstand that?
Well, look, yes, I believe so. And Trump will try to pick them off one by one, of course. But let me give you an example. And again, Carney referred to it. In my time as PM, we had the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which, as you know, is a big project of the Obama administration. Trump becomes president, pulls out of it. Most people thought the deal was dead. I persuaded Shinzo Abe, then the PM of Japan, that we should keep going with it. And then we persuaded other countries, including Canada, although Canada was in and out a couple of times. But we finally got all the other members of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, other than the US, to stick with it. And so that is a big, ambitious regional trade deal. And as Carney noted, and as President Macron spoke, and I want to pay credit to him, he's been very eloquent and strong on exactly this theme himself. The European Union is now working towards having a closer tie with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The UK has already joined it. And so middle powers who, do not need to have leadership from the United States or from China. They can do things together. And when we say they're middle powers, I mean, Canada is a huge economy. Australia is a big economy. Japan is a gigantic economy. So, and the European Union is, depending on how you do the sums, either the second or the third biggest economy in the world. So the bottom line is we do have agency, but we have to work together.
I'll leave it on that note. Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Pleasure to see you as always. Appreciate your insights.
Okay, Vashi, thank you very much.